We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Thursday. Thursday is typically Old Soul Day, and damned if isn't Old Soul with us. Except, Old Soul, you're not in Las Vegas. You're not
No,
in Arizona. You're
mm-mm.
currently in Florida.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing in Florida?
Well, Ron DeSantis, and when I was texting, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, and I said he needs to be in jail. Some of the stuff I didn't know until I was here. So I thought this was a repeat of Arkansas, where he was going to reject a certain amount of the signatures, and then that way the amendment wouldn't be validated. I found out that the Secretary of State verified these signatures 7 months ago. So
Really?
they're already valid. Yeah. So what it is he is intimidating people who signed the petition to have the referendum on the ballot. And I heard 35 and 36,000. He just like picked that many signatures. Coincidentally, they're all in like certain areas and certain groups of people.
Right.
So it's just kind of like voter intimidation. I don't know how he's getting away with this.
Well, what's the point of intimidating them now if they've already signed it and it's already been certified? It's not like they can uncertify these things. Is it just being a dick, or does he expect to accomplish something?
I don't know. So from what we saw here is that they knock on people's doors. They're asking them for their ID. They're just they're not doing anything physical to them, but it does seem to be intimidating.
Well, I mean, that would be the only reason to do it. There is no legal reason that they would want to do it. You had the
Yeah.
audacity to sign this petition. Now you're going to have to pay the price. You're going to have to deal with us. We can't do anything to you, but just know we're watching you. That's kind of the thing
Yeah.
he's trying to do.
Yeah, because I was confused because when I found out it was like over a million signatures, like over a million, and
Yeah.
you're only picking, 35, 36,000. What's that going to do? When, I mean, like they got dang near three times as many signatures as they needed. So
Yeah.
what is this going to do? And come to find out, it really is trying to intimidate these people for signing that
Well,
referendum petition.
I
It's
have to.
crazy.
One thing about Republicans, everything is performative. It's not going to accomplish anything. It's not going to take the question off the ballot. Do you think it's maybe to show Donald Trump or some other MAGA people that I'm trying to do something I won't be able to accomplish? I mean, the Republicans do this all the time. Let's have a hearing for Tim Walz. Let's have a hearing for whoever. Nothing's ever going to get accomplished. There is no evidence, but they do it to just make it look like they're doing something for somebody.
I mean, that would make sense if the people were with him, but they're
Yeah.
not. The women here don't want that. Parents here don't want that. So it's not just women, it's like men and women. There's men with daughters. They don't want that. There's like a lot of seniors. They don't want that. There's like an old woman that I was talking to, and she was just like, we overcame this 50 years ago.
Right.
So it's kind of like we've already like fought this battle and won, and now we have to refight it again. And then her husband was like, "Yeah, they wouldn't ask me to go back and do WW2 all over again." And I was like, when you think about it like that, it's like, yeah, it really is taking them backwards. And for people who've already gone through that, they don't want to go through that again. They don't want to watch their daughters and granddaughters go through that again because it's kind of like, why did I go through it? Because
Right.
I went through it so you wouldn't have to go through it. But now they want you to go through it too. So it kind of makes it feel like what they did was for nothing. And these people are not okay with that. I thought it would be like crazy racist, but people are just mostly pissed off pretty much.
So you went there to help out. Is there much you can do about the situation other than make noise about this egregious behavior?
Make noise, but the attorneys and stuff, they have like certain like groups. However, it's been so much going on. It just hasn't been enough people, when they come and they need people like on the ground to help out. There just hasn't been enough because it's like resources is stressed. They were in Texas, they were in Georgia. You see what happened in Missouri. They were a judge like just said, oh no, invalid. We're not going to put the referendum on there. So then they had to hurry up, escalate that to the Supreme Court in that state of Missouri. The Supreme Court was like, no, they got the signatures, it can be on a ballot. So once they did that, now the people they had in Missouri, they can come here and help out. But they just pretty much need people here just to kind of like help on the ground while they're getting everything set up so they can like combat this in like court and, you know, all the filings and stuff. I don't know the legal wranglings of all that stuff, but yeah, it's just like they're doing it everywhere. So it's kind of, you just stretch resources out. And I do think maybe that's the goal. It's kind of like a game of whack-a-mole. You know what I mean? Like once you
Right.
hit one, another hair pops up. And I
Right.
do think maybe that's part of the goal, but they don't know people like Mark Elias. He don't really he don't
No.
really give up. Like I think he got like 100 and some cases open right now in states just to let people be able to vote. You know, it's you'll be surprised how hard they try
Well,
to just tell people you can vote. It's
you
insane.
you brought up the Missouri situation, and for those folks that don't know what's going on or what was going on there, of course they got enough signatures on a petition to put the abortion question on the ballot. And then as we're getting closer to the election, some of the Republicans tried to game the system and tried to find ways to get it taken off the ballot. But there was a deadline of a couple of days ago. A judge said, "Yeah, you can take it off," and then it was
Mhm.
appealed to the Missouri Supreme Court. And then just a couple of days ago, the Supreme Court said, "Yeah, that's bullshit." Was there a lot of concern and a lot of people upset in Missouri?
They were upset there. They were upset here, especially like when you see what happened in Arkansas. You're like,
Yeah,
oh crap, we just did it again in Missouri. And so people here were like, oh man, you know, like they see like if DeSantis and his little, I call him his little goon squad. Once they see that they got away with it in Missouri, they can take a page out of their playbook and try to apply it here. And so we were so scared, like if they get away with this in Missouri, they're definitely going to do it here. But the way they escalated that case so quickly, and the Supreme Court was kind of like, I don't want to say laughed them out of court, but told them it wasn't cool what they did in layman's terms, then everybody here was like, oh yeah, we got this. It's good. We can go now. It kind of just gave them some hope because you just see them getting away with it. So
right.
it was definitely some wind in our sails and we got that back.
But in terms of Missouri and Florida right now, there's not much more they can do. It's too late. It's too close to the election, right? These questions are going to be on the ballot regardless of whether or not they like it.
Yeah, no matter like that's it, that's done. This was like certified Secretary of State 7 months ago. Everything was good. Right, I didn't know that till I got here, and from what you know, everything is just in.
I lost your voice. I can't hear you. I got something going on with Old Souls thing here. I can't hear your voice. We got some kind of technical malfunction going on.
Um,
Okay, I hear you now, though.
okay, yeah, it's just when I got here, I found out it was just pure intimidating these people that signed that the referendum petition. But the only thing was they drew 36 is what I'm hearing. So somewhere in there, 1,000 names, but they were pretty poignant as to where they were targeting those signatures. So yeah.
Well, we've talked about how important having those questions on the ballot are in Florida, in Missouri, in Arizona, and some other places. We know it's important because it's going to bring out a lot of people, both Republican and Democrat, that support Roe v. Wade, and this is going to impact the other ballot options, presumably helping out the Democrats. So we know it's
Yeah.
important, but clearly the Republicans are nervous about it. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing these games and trying to pull the wool over people's eyes.
Yeah, and one thing that I want people to pay attention to, they keep saying, oh, we kicked it back to the states. It's the states' issues. So it's going to be on the ballot. Your state going to say it's all good. So don't worry about it. But in the meantime, they know that these states are doing absolutely everything they can to quiet the will of the people. So when the people speak up and put these initiatives on the ballot so they can vote for it and they can have their state ran the way that the people wanted to be ran, the Republicans are going to do absolutely everything in their power to not allow that to happen.
Right.
So it's kind of like, why are you telling them, oh, we kicked it back to the states? You could just vote on it and it's fine. And they know that it's nothing further from the truth than that. Nothing's further from the truth. They're going to do absolutely everything they can so that even though it's kicked back to the states, you're not going to have any say so in that. So I mean, it's the same as trying to do it nationally. The only thing is that you can't do it in every single state. However, if they were able to get control of the White House and Congress, that's exactly what they would do. And you know that by the way that they're acting in the states. It's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that debate and about the abortion issue as it came up in the debate, because there's some interesting things there. I wanted to check one other thing before we do that, though. You're from Las Vegas. You're in Florida doing what you can do here. I asked you if you were going to go home after this, and you said no. Now you're going to Pennsylvania. Why are you going to Pennsylvania?
The campaign, they have like internal polling that we don't see, and so they need to do like some more grassroots there. I think there's like a couple of field offices that they're opening up for starting next week, and I have experience in that. And I'm telling you, like once people know that, oh, you're flexible with your schedule, or your job allows for you to travel, like you're the first person that they call. So when they called, I was just at first I didn't want to because I don't talk a lot about them because they're children. But my honey, he's like a single father, and his daughters are 7 and 9. And so I was just like, oh my God, I don't really want to like leave them. But my
Yeah.
daughter, she came up with a really good idea. She got them a like a countdown calendar where they can count down until like November 5th.
Yeah.
And then she was just telling them, and their dad was telling them, like, well, until this date, she's gonna be kind of like all over the place because she's helping these women and these girls because they've seen women and girls come here. So it's like that's how we explained it to them, so that I don't feel as bad. And then just doing like video chats and all of that stuff, making sure that I'm still connected to the wild child. But yeah, after I settle all of that, I said, yeah, I'll go and do it.
So, with regards to Pennsylvania, you're not there regarding the abortion issue. You're there regarding the election as a whole.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So hopefully we get a wider margin there than what it is. So I guess the internal polling is showing that it's just a little bit too close for comfort. So they're gonna, and it's crazy because it seems like they have the money to do it, to get a couple more field offices, get some more people out there to kind of like jump in and help out. But I think once our presence is known, hopefully they'll be flooded with volunteers like we are everywhere else. So
Now, when you're out canvassing, talking to people, are you having any luck taking people that either don't know who they're going to vote for or would vote for Donald Trump? Are you having luck convincing people to think the right way, as it were?
you say think the right way.
Meaning vote for Kamala.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't try to tell them like the right way or the wrong way. For me, like my methodology at this point is just trying to give them facts. Um, because a lot of stuff they don't hear, they
Yeah.
don't like see certain things. So it's just kind of like pointing that out that that's not true. Certain things like VA choice, when Trump touts that, that's not true. He didn't do that. That was done under the Obama administration. And it has to be stuff that's like really simple like that. And then that way they can actually look up the date in which it was signed into law. And then which president was in charge at that time. So that's the president that was actually signing it. So that's who did it. So that's when he lied about that. You can point out how many times he tried to turn over the Affordable Care Act. Like certain things they just don't know. And it's like, I don't know how to say it without being disrespectful, but kind of like lacking the intellectual curiosity that
They're
when you hear
stupid.
something,
They're stupid, is what you're saying.
when you hear something, instead of just repeating it,
Yeah.
just say, let me just check that real quick. That Let me see if that's true or not. Or I think especially when I try to tell people, it's like if you have your daughter, your wife, or whoever is telling you that's not true, you have been around these people for years. You've raised these children. Why would they be lying to you? And if you did think that they were lying, at least to say, okay, well, let me hear them out and then let me check for it myself, because they're isolated because they feel like you're choosing Donald Trump, Fox News, whatever bubble you're in, you're choosing that over them. So that's where the disconnect comes from. So it's just kind of when you put it to them in a human way, they get it. And then, yeah, I've persuaded a few people who've been on the fence, people who are like, well, I don't really know about her. It's something about her that I just don't quite like. And when you push them, like, well, what is it? And they'll say stupid things like, oh, the way she laughs. What I heard today a lot that was so weird, but other people were hearing it too, was like how put together she is. And I didn't think that was a negative thing. But I do think when you look at it, Donald Trump has gotten us used to kind of like the circus, the show, that when you have someone who is put together and articulate, to them it's just kind of like dull and kind of boring. And they don't really realize that that's what's happening to them.
This is why I couldn't be a canvasser. This is why they got to keep me from knocking on doors. I go to a door and I go, who are you voting for? And they say, I haven't decided yet. I'd say, you have not fucking decided yet? How could you not decide yet? Jesus Christ. It's right there in front of your face. Are you stupid? You see how they might not take to that as well as maybe your approach.
Yeah, I will say though that you get more people, honestly, who have their mind made up. And I would say like 7 times out of 10, it's like either they're not gonna vote for Kamala or they're voting for her. Or I don't want to say not, but they're still kind of like straddling that fence, or they've already made up their mind to vote for her in Vegas. But
Right.
here is kind of like they mostly want to say that they're on a fence. And I've been noticing that the conversation is different when you're talking to them by themselves versus if you're talking to them in front of their husband or family or something. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't really want to say. But if you catch people like by themselves, they're a little bit more open.
Right, right. Well, I want to talk about the debate because I know you were pretty excited about it. You were in Florida. You were kind of in a situation where it was a party situation. It was almost like going to a Super Bowl party. I think that was the case for a lot of folks. But before we get into that, I just want to let people know. Um, I think I mentioned something on the podcast about my wife wanting a specific T-shirt.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
she wanted a specific T-shirt. Old Soul heard that, and she went out and got these T-shirts, one for me and one for my wife, and sent them off to us. So I'm gonna stand up and I'm gonna show you what it says.
I'm voting for Gus's dad.
It says, "I'm voting for Gus's dad," and it's a great T-shirt. I
Yeah.
don't. And my wife wore it out, and I said, "Now, just be careful out there. There's some fucking freaky ass people out there." And what she found was, several people came up to her, and all of them
Yeah.
positive. And I said, "Well, honey, you're a woman. Um, if I wear this out in public, we're going to be starting some shit." you know, it's like, you know, I always kid people who name their kids weird names. I always liken it to putting a post-it note on the back of their shirt and saying, "Please kick my ass." And and now that wouldn't happen to me because I'm older and because I'll push back, but I just have a feeling that people will be more compelled. Other old men will be compelled to go, "What are you doing? What are you woke? You libtard?" But I do like the sentiment of the T-shirt, and thank you very much for that. And my wife is excited; she wears it every chance she can get. But Gus Walls' dad is who we're voting for, and of course we're talking
I
about
wore
Tim
mine on
Walls.
the plane.
What's that?
I wore mine on the plane.
Did you? Did you get any
Yeah.
backlash
I
from it?
didn't get I didn't get anything negative. Everybody liked it. There was like a flight attendant. She was like, "Oh my god, I love that shirt." Like everybody liked it. I didn't get anything negative. I kind of thought that I would, but I didn't. So Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
pretty
was
cool.
surprised. My wife got no negativity for it too, but Old Soul, thank you very much for the t-shirts. I appreciate that. I will wear it because my wife said, "Are you going to wear it today?" I say, "You feel like starting some shit?" Because somebody's going to come up and say something to me. My wife always says, "Don't talk about politics," and I don't talk about politics in the real world when I'm walking around until
Yeah.
some motherfucker comes up to me and says, "He shut down the Keystone Pipeline." All right, bitch, we're going to explain this. And that leads us into the debate. And what I find funny, we're going to talk all about the debate because I know you have a lot to say about it. But this whole shutting down the Keystone Pipeline thing, I thought we debunked this whole thing, and everybody knew what was going on. Occasionally, I would run across somebody who was stupid who would say that, then I'd have to educate them. But Donald Trump said it in the debate the other day. He said he shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Just for anybody who doesn't know or needs to explain this to somebody else, there is a Keystone Pipeline. It's still there. It's always been there. It hasn't gone. What they were
Mhm.
going to do is build an extension to this pipeline that never was built, and it was shut down. And I think the Supreme Court had more to do with it than Biden, but Biden agreed to it and it was shut down. Now, the
Mhm.
important thing to understand about this extension that was shut down, it didn't move crude oil or refined oil. It didn't move that. It moves something called tar sand, which is a very unrefined, very low grade of oil. And it moved it from Canada to Mexico. None of it came here in the United States. So even if that pipeline, that extension pipeline, had been closed down, it affects nothing in this country. So next time somebody says, "Oh, he shut down the Keystone pipeline," just say, "Shut the fuck up. Vote for Gus Walls' dad and shut the fuck up."
Well, they're not saying it as a fact. They're just repeating what they've heard.
Exactly.
And that's all that it is. Typically, like if I get that type of stuff, I'll be like, really? Did he? Let's look that up real quickly. And then you can just check and then you could just point it out.
Yeah.
And then like once you point out a couple of lies, it's kind of like, oh, the Republicans have a habit of lying and giving misinformation.
Yeah.
And then that'll kind of like open their brain up a little bit, but you do have to, I don't know how to say, like talk to them like they're children, but kind of like hold their hand a little bit in a quick conversation. Because
Eh, eh,
they repeat it. You will be surprised how many people you talk to. And it's kind of like if you put all of their voices together and press play, they would be on beat saying the same thing. You wouldn't know the difference. Like they say it word for word exactly how it is that they've heard it.
See,
When you
see,
take them outside of that, because they're kind of like on a little loop. When you kick them off the loop, they don't know really where to go and what to do. But it really is just repeating what they've heard. That's it.
this is a difference between Old Soul and I. If she's talking to somebody, she'll be compassionate and diplomatic and talk nicely and softly to them. And I might say, "Are you fucking high? What are you thinking? Jesus Christ. I can't believe I'm speaking to an idiot." So I stay on the podcast and TikToks and I'm safe there and I don't, well, I won't say that I don't insult or piss people off because I do, but I don't have to listen to their shit. I just block them. Um, but
I'll stay in the field, no problem.
I want to offer something out to the people on the podcast and on TikTok. I did a TikTok about this. Now, prior to this debate, I said Kamala Harris would annihilate Donald Trump. And I said, in order to annihilate Donald Trump, what she needs to do is keep sticking him, keep stinging him, keep him
Wow.
pissed off, but also spend the bulk of the time talking about her policies. And that's exactly what happened. She did that, and
Yeah.
she annihilated Donald Trump. Now people are coming to me, and I just want to clear this up. People are coming to me saying, "Oh wow, that's brilliant. You predicted it." I didn't predict shit. I just cut out the noise. And what I mean by that is when people are looking at something coming up like this debate, I took out fear, I took out media bias, and I took out bullshit and I set it aside. Then I just
Mhm.
looked at the facts, and the facts are simple. Donald Trump is the worst presidential candidate in history. He's not a good debater. Even if you go back to the Biden debate, if you took just the content of what he said, it was fucking ridiculous. It wasn't on point. It was disjointed. It was disoriented. He was scattered. It was a horrible presentation by Donald Trump. It's just that everybody worried about the performance of Joe Biden because Joe Biden was very clear about what he said. So you got that part of it. Also, I know that Donald Trump is easily unhinged. And if Kamala Harris gave him some shots, he would get unhinged and then he would get more ridiculous. Now, conversely, I know Kamala Harris is probably the most popular, maybe the most qualified candidate for president in history. I know that she, while she doesn't have as much presidential debate experience, she's a prosecutor. Same fucking difference. She's going to know how to get this guy going and say the things he doesn't want to say. I know she was going to be articulate. I know she was going to be straightforward. And I know she wasn't going to get caught up in her emotions. So now, if you take the emotions and you take the bullshit and the media bias away and you just take a look at those facts, what happened last night is the only thing that could happen. You got the
Yeah.
worst against the best. The worst is flawed and the best is kicking ass. That's how it was going to happen. So I'm no Nostradamus here. I just didn't listen to the other shit and focused on the facts. How did you feel going into the debate? Were you worried? Did you think it was going to turn out differently?
I think I had a bunch, well, not a bunch, but a little bit of a like a trauma reaction, like right before it started. And I
Fear?
do think,
Is that like fear?
yeah, a little bit. And I do think a lot of people, they were like confident. And then like maybe like an hour or so before the debate, you started seeing people kind of like worry a little bit. And I do think it was just a trauma reaction from what we just saw with Biden, which is a normal reaction to have. And I was just like, like I hope she doesn't. It wasn't like she wouldn't be able to handle herself. I was like, I hope she doesn't get like too caught up in the weeds of the policy, because Trump is just going to lie, and that
Right,
is the facts are going to get drowned out.
right.
But I would say maybe like 20 minutes into it, I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Pass me that drink. Like that's how it was. And then I don't think people like noticed how she was very strategic, like when she started talking about the crowd size, because she knew that his strongest talking point would be the border. She even said it in the beginning. He's going to talk about the border even when that's not the question. But when the question actually was about the border, and it's like, this is his moment to shine, this is his strongest talking point, that's the moment that she chose to drop that bomb on the crowd size.
Right.
And it threw him completely off of his strongest talking point, or his perceived strongest talking point, right? And so that confidence that he would have gone into that particular question, and the way that he, in his mind, he would have just steamrolled her over that question, he wasn't able to do, because she's like, oops, squirrel, like it was so strategic when she did that. So it's not like she just threw it out there to get him upset. She did that, but she did it at a time where it would distract him from his strongest talking point. And I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty cool how she did that.
Now I
I'm pretty sure that before this debate, she had to have sat down with a mental health professional. She had to, just because of like the way she laughed at him, the way she looked at him, the way she pointed her finger at him, which could be perceived as disrespectful, especially when it's someone like Trump. I'm like, yeah, there's no way she didn't talk to a mental health professional about Trump before she hit that stage.
did you get the impression? I got the impression that in the first 10 minutes you could tell she was nervous. She was a little
Yeah.
more scattered. And my wife was saying she's nervous. I go, just wait till she makes a couple shots and she gets her legs under, and then she'll start to roll and it'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. Once Donald Trump became a little riled about this situation, I think the key to Kamala Harris winning in that debate was that Donald Trump was always on defense. She was always on offense. If you notice, whenever he'd make some claim about her, she'd never address that directly, giving him the power to make her say something. She'd go off on some other tangent, but she was always on offense. He was always on defense, and that's the last place a bully wants to be.
Yeah, the laughing at him,
I love
the
that. I love that.
yeah, the pettiness of talk about extreme, like it just made him like seem ridiculous and small. And I'm pretty sure that's something my daughter would have told me to do, like this, shrink him down a little bit. But also, even though you're far apart, there's a way to get inside someone's personal space. So I think when she crossed that middle threshold, went to his podium,
Right.
shook his hand. I'm pretty sure that was a firm handshake. And she was like, Kamala, let's have a good debate. She didn't say, will we have a good debate or none of that friendly stuff. Let's have a good debate. And I think even though she went back to her podium, he still felt her presence in his personal space. He would have been better off being an adult and meeting her halfway, but he couldn't do that. So she completely violated his space. Like he was thrown off from jump, even though she found her footing before she took off. She got him from the word go.
Well, she, in essence, I'm not trying to make any claims about anything, but she, in essence, an analogy would be she went over there, peed on his property, and then went back home proudly. That's basically what
Yeah.
she did, and that pissed off Donald Trump to no doubt. There was a point in the thing, and there's so many points we can talk about, but there's a point I got a lot of people DMing me about this, and I was happy because I thought the same thing. There was a point in the debate when she was saying something to Donald and she was pointing, and she goes, and this, and she pauses for a second, and she goes, this former president. I was happy to find out that I wasn't the only one thinking she wanted to say motherfucker or piece of shit. And I think she was trying to make it look like she was holding back because that's what she wanted to say.
Yeah, that was. It's funny to me because I can't tell you how many times I've done that. I I I think it was like she said before that the M word is like her favorite word, and I do think she
That's why
tried
I
to
love
like.
her.
I think she tried to play it in her mind a little bit. Like she wanted to try to find a word in place of that word. And so when
Yeah.
she couldn't find the word, she just said former president. So, like for me, I say this fool, this thing, this child, this whoever. I do think maybe she tried to find one of those words, but there was nothing that would have came out not disrespectful in a bad way. They don't want to label her as a certain type of thing. She want to give them that ammo. So I do think she just fell back on former president, which for me, every time she said that, it was a dig, it was a disrespect because he makes people call him Mr. President, President Trump. And she kept saying former president when he was president at the time. So she was taking away that title from him. And I know he felt disrespected. It's kind of like she was bullying him in a way, even when she went in his personal space, because she knew he did not want to shake her hand. So she went
Right.
over there and pretty much made him do it. Like, you're not going to shake my hand. You know what I mean? So she kind of like forced him to do things that he didn't want to do. She was all up in his face. It was insane, but stripping him away from that President Trump, Mr. President, taking that title away from him had to be an ego blow, like in a different type of way than those rallies.
Do you know how many times I've been in that same situation like Kamala was when she's referring to Donald Trump, where I should have paused and should have thought better, but didn't? Pretty much every day. Pretty much every day.
I was gonna say how many times a day.
Yeah. If I think somebody's a motherfucker, I'm going to tell them. And
Yeah.
funny, most people don't like that. They don't like that at all. He I want to talk about the abortion part of it, but I'm going to say that for the second half. We're about 10 minutes away from the break. So um, she did something that, again, was strategic, and you brought it up earlier. We knew that he was always going to be talking about the immigration thing because that's his one trigger. That's his one thing that he thinks is his strongest point. And it turns out it's not a strong point at all. And Kamala pretty much neutralized him there. But when he got to that point where he was trying to make us believe that immigrants were the worst humans coming across the border and they were doing horrible things. He told us that they killed people and they raped people, and that was crazy. And this is shit we've heard before. But when he went to the extent of telling us that they eat dogs and cats, I was so taken by Kamala's response because she started laughing and everybody started laughing. Whoever watched it, it was so ridiculous. And this is a perfect example of what I've said before. Donald Trump is a big emotional ball. He says whatever comes out of his mouth, and when that doesn't work, he just ramps it up more. And when he ramped it up to that point, he made a fucking mistake.
It's funny, but it's not funny because it's a very racist thing to say when you talk about the Haitian community, and then it's the same thing that people used to say about like the Chinese immigrants, that they would eat your dogs and your cats and all of that stuff. So it was racial, and it was very disrespectful, but it wasn't unexpected. Like, she gave the list of things that he said that has been very racial. His racist past, not letting Black dealers on the floor when he had high profile guests coming in there, not wanting to rent to minorities. Like, this isn't anything new for him. I don't know if you remember, like, when he was like president, he was saying that the Haitian immigrants were bringing HIV and AIDS into the country. This isn't anything new for him to say that, this is something that they're doing when clearly they're not. The thing that gets him messed up, and his team, the people around him, they don't do him any favors by keeping him so sheltered and disconnected from everyone. Like, I know he's going to get upset and throw his little temper tantrums, but when you isolate him, this is what happens, because
Right.
he just assumed that everyone was like on board with him when he said that. Half of the people watching, they didn't even know what that meant. And then
No.
the other half of the people thought it was just like some rambling old man. And then the people who did get it saw it as completely racist. That only plays to your base and those people. It doesn't appeal to anyone that's new, that's listening for the first time, or someone who hasn't paid attention to you since 2020. You know what
And
I mean? So he,
well,
he shoots his own foot in the foot with this stuff.
this is where Donald Trump misses the boat and he doesn't understand what he's trying to do. He's real big on catering to people who love him, okay? But
Yeah.
you've already got their votes. You don't need to go after their votes. You've got to appeal to other people that maybe normally wouldn't vote for you or undecided. And so he doesn't understand that at all. And the other problem he has, you talk about being isolated. I think what the real problem Donald Trump has is he has a rage problem. He has an anger problem. And the people around him are a lot like what I've talked about before, kids with a narcissistic uh, parent that has a bad temper. They do anything to shelter themselves from their rage, and they'll tell him anything and do anything. And I think a lot of these people are afraid to tell him the truth about a lot of things. And I think he's just unaware. He's not somebody that's self aware, really. If he was, he'd be embarrassed. But um,
But
because of
he's
Donald Trump's personality, he can never do well because he doesn't listen to anybody.
Yeah, but he's not a child. He's beyond an adult.
Wait,
He's
wait,
71.
wait a minute. Chronologically, he's an adult.
He's a
Emotionally,
senior.
he's about a fourth grader. Literally, I'm serious about that. That's not a joke. I sound like
Yeah.
Joe Biden here. Not a joke. It's true. He's immature. He's emotionally stunted, and he's just not a well person. He's mentally ill.
Well, he's old enough to, get the $5 early bird special at Denny's. He's a senior citizen. You coddling him like he's a child. That's the reason he's in the situation he's in right now.
Right.
Nobody forced this fool to grow up, take responsibility, and learn. You know what you feel sometimes. You need to be held accountable sometimes. And it's kind of like maybe he need to go see somebody and talk to somebody. He may not want to do that, but you run your mouth anyway. You telling yourself at your rallies. You always getting caught on video, on tape, or something talking. So why don't you talk to somebody in confidence for once? Because these therapy sessions that you're having, you need to have it in a setting where it can probably help you. The only thing is, at this point, there's nothing that they could do. His mind is already gone. This is literally an old dog that's not going to learn no new tricks. Why they
Absolutely.
tie themselves to this man is beyond me. It's
Let me
beyond me.
let me give you an example about people who aren't willing or have the courage to cross Donald Trump. All they do is try to support the crazy shit he says. They were talking to JD Vance about this whole situation, okay? About the eating of the pets. And JD
That part.
Vance, JD Vance is a Ivy League educated man. He's allegedly a smart man. JD Vance watched him look like a fool, get laughed at, and still JD Vance doubled down on this. Well, it could have and this. Are you stupid? Why do you walk into a brick wall? Because that's exactly what he did. But these people are so terrified of Donald Trump or thinking they're going to get something from Donald Trump, they will say anything, even if they know it's a lie, just to appease Donald Trump.
Put me around.
Oh, yeah, he wouldn't like me at all.
I have absolutely no problem. They need to find a bad guy and put that person around Trump and keep him together. Because what they are doing is kind of like, the definition of insanity. You're
Yeah.
repeating the same thing and you're getting the same result, but you are expecting a different outcome. Coddling him, where has that gotten you? Allowing him to just run roughshod, where has that gotten you? So why are you continuing this? It's like I don't want to give him advice, but by this, I don't think I've ever. This is what gets me. I've never seen as a whole a group of people who were this feckless, weak cowards. It's beyond a cult because I look at the people at his rallies. Some of the people around them, I see them as a cult, but the people with the actual knowledge and the brains that know better, I've never seen people like that who are that cowardice. But one person, what is he gonna do? Send out a mean tweet? Okay. Like, what is he like? Literally, what is he gonna do?
The one thing I was really surprised at and kind of impressed with Donald Trump over is that I know narcissists, and when you push them and push them and push them, eventually they explode. They get angry, they get upset, they yell and scream and say horrible shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they held him to keep his calm because he was pushed to a great extent. All the generals think you're a disgrace. The rest of the world is laughing at you. These are the things that would cause a narcissist to go off the deep end and start spewing shit. I don't know how it was that he was able to hold himself together based on what I know of narcissists. The only thing I can imagine is some kind of medicinal accessory like Adderall or whatever. There had to be something involved to hold his temper. I mean, you could see his temper was starting to stir up, but he didn't break. And that surprised me because she did everything she could to make him break.
He was taking that vitriol feeling that he was having, and
Yeah.
he was just like pooping it out.
Right.
That's what I think he was doing. But also, I could see, like, if you looked at his lip, the sweat that was there, the corner of his mouth was like foaming white. I don't know what to call that. But it was there.
Frothing. He was
Frothing.
frothing.
He was frothing like at the corner of his mouth. When he was raising his voice and he was yelling, it was like spit coming out of his mouth. He was angry and it was taking absolutely everything in him not to call her out her name, not to call her nasty, not to call her a lunatic, not to do any of that stuff that he does at his rallies. He couldn't say it to her face. He couldn't even look at her. But I do think that's part of the reason that he was able to hold it in.
Yeah.
Because the moment that Trump would have looked at Kamala, that's when he would have completely lost it. Because it's like, oh no, I know this black woman over here talking to me like that. So him not looking at her, yeah, he was being a coward, but at the same time, I think he might have been coached like, don't look at her because you're gonna lose it. And I do think that may have played a part in that.
Yeah. I knew he was on the edge. I knew he was on the
Mhm.
edge when he said that Joe Biden hates you, Kamala Harris. They- That's what they do. They go to that extent. I've had that experience, when my father was around. I had a business. My brother was in the business with me, and my dad needed to invest some money, so he had a little bit of money in the business. And he got caught up in something with my mom, and my mom was on his shit, and he was cornered, and he was looking for something to hit back at my mom, and the only thing would be her sons, my brother and I. So he says to her, you better keep calm because your sons are doing illegal shit in their business and we'll expose that stuff. Well, the business wasn't even making money. So I don't know what illegal shit we could have done, but he just made that shit up and he was striking out at us to get back at her. And that's what he was trying to do with Kamala Harris. Oh, Joe Biden hates you. Really? You've been talking to Joe Biden? I don't think so.
You know what? I know that type of behavior because my daughter's father, he would do that to me. Like when he would see or notice, like I was thinking about, like I need to get the heck up out of here. He would say stuff like that. What are you gonna do? You gonna call your mom? She wasn't there for like 17 years. You think she's gonna be there now? You know what I mean? Like he would say stuff like that. Where you gonna go
You're
to your grandma?
ugly. Nobody wants you. Nobody will be with you. This is
That's
typical
the
of
type
that
of stuff
behavior.
that's the type of stuff they say. And for him, being the coward that he is, instead of saying, I hate you, I don't like you, he puts that off on somebody else. And he does that because he knows how close her and Biden is. So it's just in his mind, that's really just gonna sting.
Right.
But he doesn't understand what it's like to be someone who is secure and confident, not only within themselves, but in their relationships. So,
And
like
even,
he said, Biden is an angry man. He hates her, this, that, and the third. She's secure in that relationship. She knows that's not true. So
and
she's
even
not
if it
going
were, even
to,
if it were true,
yes,
she's going to be fucking president. Who gives a shit?
yeah. Why would she feed into that? Like, you tripping. You know what I mean? Like, hey, the people around me love me. Your people can't stand you. Where's your wife at? But
Yeah,
she doesn't take it to that level because it's just, why would you dignify that lie with an answer? It's ridiculous.
absolutely. And I want to explore that part of it too. And we'll talk about the abortion issue as it came up. We're going to take a quick break and we will be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Old Soul is with us. She is in Florida doing some groundwork for some shit going there. After that, she's going to Pennsylvania to do some groundwork for the election in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania really, everybody points to Pennsylvania as kind of the main state that has to be won if you want to win the election. I mean, I think if Florida flips or some of these others flips, Pennsylvania becomes less important. But based on what we know from past history, Pennsylvania is a crucial spot.
Yeah. Especially with a lot of the Trump pulling ad money and resources from states that they've just given up on, and they're going to redirect it to Pennsylvania. We got to be able to fight back.
Absolutely.
You
Well,
know
let's get
what?
back.
Speaking of money and resources, I have a really quick question.
Sure.
So, is it like in 10 days he's going to be able to cash out his stock? Do you think that he is going to be able to do that? I have to die to ask you that.
You're talking about the True Social. Okay. Yeah, that dropped 20% after the debate. Uh,
Right.
it went from 17 to 16 something,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at its high at like 67. So he's lost
Right.
a lot of money there. Here's what I know for sure. I think he can cash it out at the end of the month. But if he does, it pretty much kills the fucking IPO.
Right.
So he'll pretty much decimate the company and lose money for everybody that's invested in the company. He could do that. It's not as much money as what they were thinking it was going to be, billions of dollars. It'll be a lot of money. But at this point, what difference does it make? That money isn't going to be used on the campaign. It's going to go in his pocket to pay for his lifestyle and maybe some legal fees. He could do it. He would destroy his company and the stock market, the IPO for that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Will he do it? Do you think Donald Trump gives a fuck about anybody else's money? No, he doesn't care. I hope he does, because that extra money isn't going to do him any good. It's not going to save him from anything, unless he's going
I
to
was
use it to pay his bill with Letitia James and E. Jean Carroll.
I I saw today that if he waited and pulled it like at the first possible chance that he could, it would be 600 million. Now that's what I heard. I don't know how true that is. I didn't check that. But my thought was what would prevent him from doing it is knowing that the election is right around the corner. And if these people lose their shirt, I mean, like, you think you have that much of a grip on your cult to do that to them? unless he borrows against the stock. That's another option. I don't know, but that's
Well,
what had me double thinking it. Like, is he even going to think about the supporters? Like, we know he don't care about them like that, but as far as like them voting for him, would that prevent him from giving into his natural instincts with that?
well, I'm not a stock market expert, but I remember reading about this some time ago when they were talking about billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because he could basically shut down the company by pulling out all his stock. I think there's some FEC rules. Is it FEC or SEC? I'm not sure, but he can't take it all out at once. He's got to take it out in intervals. He can only take so much out at any given time. So it's not like he's going to be able to go there and grab all the money. He's going to have to take a portion now, 6 months from now, another portion. So he can't do this all at once, as far as I understand it. Um, I don't see how it helps him really at this point. He still got an election in less than 2 months. He's still got to be sentenced to prison in November. He's still got to
Yeah.
deal. He's going to lose the election. He can get all the money he wants. It's not going to do him any good at this point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm thinking that I guess maybe it will be a blow, but not as big of a blow if he borrows against the stock. But then again, it's like, who is going to loan him that amount of money? And the interest rate would be ridiculous. So I'm thinking if he was going to pull out, he would just start pulling out and just go ahead and let it crash. Or if he would do it right after the election. I don't know. I have been dying to ask you that question because this is one time when it comes to Trump that I'm like, I really don't know what this man gonna do.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know what you're saying. He's he he's screwed no matter which way he goes. Any money he gets drained very quickly. Um,
Yeah,
he's if he wants to kill True Social, then he's got no platform to speak on other than X. And he's only
hmm,
been, I don't know. There's a lot of people around him that are going to try to stop him from doing it because they'll all lose money. He's got so much other shit to worry about. I wouldn't even be concerned about that. But here's the thing: he's at 16. If it
yeah,
goes below 12, he gets nothing. Seriously. If it goes below
uh,
12, because it was at about 12. See, what he did was he didn't start a new IPO. He just
yeah,
latched on to an existing IPO, and I think it was at 11 or 12. So the deal
yeah.
is anything above 12 you get. So I don't know that he even gets the $12. So he may be only at $4 for him to cash out. Maybe not, but if it goes below 12, he gets zip. He gets nothing, and that's not inconceivable at this point. We're at September 12th, and at the end of the month, who knows what's going to happen, and that shit may take a dive.
And I think that it could impact the election, even if his supporters were like, you know what, I'm just not going to vote because they can't stomach to vote for their own best interest. um, I think that could be an impact if because they look at him as like this successful businessman who can't do any wrong. If that crashes, especially with what him and the other right wingers have been saying, the only reason that the stock market does what it does is dependent on the polls.
Right.
So if his own stock completely crashes, then what does that say? So I'm wondering. I think that will affect it, but I do think the ball is in his court on this one. I just don't know what he's going to do.
It is. Let's get back to the debate a little bit. I want to talk about Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris, I knew would do a great job going into this debate, and I knew Donald
Mhm.
Trump would do a terrible job. I think Kamala Harris did an even better job than I expected because everything
Yeah.
she did in the situation was perfect. And what I'm intrigued by with her, she can do something I can't, and a lot of people can't. She can go in there, be professional, tough, prosecutorial, but she can keep it classy as well. She knows the boundaries of what she can go. She can stick it to them without looking like she's an angry black woman, and
Mhm.
that's pretty amazing. And in addition to that, after kicking Donald Trump's ass, she can be off on the side laughing and hugging kids and old people and all that kind of stuff. She really
Yeah.
has mastered that whole persona and being able to be what she needs to be at any given time. and also in the process appear to be genuine about it. It's not like she's faking it. It's all real.
Yeah, it was one part in there when I said that her empathy, it showed. Like, even though as tough as she is, and as much as she was sticking it to him, when she said clearly he has a problem or a difficult time processing that. When she said it and she was looking at him, like, it was a genuine expression on her face that he is struggling with this. I think that outside of any other like debate stage setting, I really do think she would have said, you probably need to figure out a way to deal with this. You know what I mean? Like, I felt that coming from her because that was my natural instinct is, he is just not processing this. He doesn't know how to handle this. Like, he can't grasp it. And I do think that she saw that and she was kind of like saying clearly he's having a difficult time processing this. It was times when she called him a liar and she called him out, but in that moment, it's just like he cannot handle this. And
No,
she kind of like clicked that in. And I do think when you're an empathetic person, sometimes it's hard to turn that completely off.
it is. But she was very surgical in using words that she knew would trigger him. Like
You're gonna
he,
die of 1,000 cuts off of that one.
yeah, he lost the election, but he's having trouble processing it. That's what she said. She also said he seems confused. And
Yeah,
those are trying to give the impression that he's the old guy that may not be cognitively sound. And
yeah,
she made her point without saying, "You're a crazy old man."
yeah.
She said it without saying it, and that takes some talent, and she did a good
Yeah.
job with it.
Especially when she said, like, that we need someone who can kind of like deal in reality. I don't know her exact words, but she does recognize that he is just completely out of touch. He is not in the same reality that we're living on. We're Earth One, him and his buddies, they're Earth Two. And I do think she realizes that. And I think her understanding the psychology there, it kind of stops her from taking it as far as she normally would if it was somebody that she maybe didn't have insight of how their mind works, because she understands that he's sheltered, he's in a bubble, he's not fit for office. He's not a good person by any measure, but she does understand his mind more than what I think people recognize. I think they know it now after that debate, but before they didn't see just how inside his mind she is.
There's a picture when they were shaking hands. There's a
Yeah.
picture that tells a lot of a story, and I showed it to my wife, and her eyes are kind of squinted and looking away a little bit, and the look to me says, "I'm gonna fuck you up." She didn't say it, but she was expressing that in her uh, facial expressions. It was pretty interesting, and it was
Her
funny.
facial expressions were priceless. She wasn't like rolling her eyes or anything like that. It's just kind of like the looks on her face is like, are you for real?
Well, and one of the pundits said she's got to, if she's going to do this, she's got to learn not to show all those facial expressions and be more presidential and stuff. Fuck that. I think what she did with her facial expressions and laughing and pointing and whatever, I thought it was respectful, but at the same time it was extremely effective. Now, other people might think that isn't how politics runs. Well, that isn't how politics used to run, but we're in a new world now.
Yeah, especially like a lot of people, they wanted to see, and I heard this a few times today, if she could stand up to him. Because even though when you look at what he's saying, and I didn't realize how normal this was until I heard other people saying it, and the wild child pointed it out to me. A lot of times when I'm watching his rallies and stuff, I will mute the television and I'll read the subtitles and I
Uh,
will watch him and the audience,
right,
because his voice and all the clapping and stuff, it's a distraction.
right.
And I didn't realize that that was something that people were like trained to do. I just do that naturally. And I do think for her, she was like picking up on all of like that body language and all of that stuff that he had going on over there. It was was pretty brilliant to watch her do that.
It
I'm like,
is.
who was she talking to before this debate
And
to know that
we
handle
got
him?
we got a little taste of it too, because we know Donald Trump's team wanted the muting of the microphones. They wanted that. And I think that worked against Donald Trump, because Donald Trump had to sit there and look goofy while Kamala was ripping him to shreds. There was one point where both mics were open, though, and he was trying to roll over her, and she wasn't having that shit. She did
Yeah.
exactly what she needed to do. She pushed back. She got a bully and she pushed back. And Donald Trump did not fucking like it at all.
No, I don't remember the numbers. I'll have to look it up. But I was hearing people here today. I guess there's somewhere where you can see how much talk time he got versus how much talk time she got. And
Right.
so when people are saying that on the right that the moderators were not fair to Trump. It was a 3-on-1. From my understanding, he got more talk time than her. And it was clear when I was watching it because his mic would be muted and he would be like, no, I have something to say. I need to respond to that. And they would turn his mic back on,
Right.
let him respond. Most of the time, they didn't even allow her to rebuttal it.
Now,
I was like, this was kind of pissing me off at some point. I had to remind myself she's not tripping because she is sitting here watching him dig his own grave and then kick the dirt in. So there was no need to interrupt him, but he got more talk time than her. It's not her fault that the moderators did not mute his mic and allowed him to tell more lies because that's what it is. He told more lies. I mean,
right.
like 30 plus, was it 35 plus lies he told in an hour and a half?
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty ridiculous. And a lot of people DM'd me and came to my comments and said it wasn't fair. He got more talk time. They catered to him more. He got to talk more. And you didn't see Kamala bitching about it.
No.
And frankly, it goes back to what I've said many times before. You want to beat Donald Trump, just let that motherfucker talk. And Kamala was cool with it. And that's why Kamala wanted the mics open. She wanted
Yeah.
him to talk more. That was less work for her, and he'd do it to himself. And he did.
Do you think them giving him more talk time and kind of, I don't want to even say he forced them to turn his mic on because they had the option to keep his mic off and move on, but they chose not to. Do you think, Sean Hannity is on his show, you guys better do the right thing? You want people to go to Disney, don't you? Like these veiled threats, Donald Trump with his threats. Do you think that impacted the way that
No.
they allowed him to do that?
No, I don't. I think the producer, whoever made that decision to flip the mic on when he was talking, I think they just figured it was going to get out of hand if he kept
Mm.
talking and the mic was off and they were trying to produce this show. I think they said, I'll just turn it on for a second, then let David Moore shut him down. And that's kind of what happened. I don't know. Nobody's afraid of these motherfuckers. That's ABC isn't afraid of Fox News. I'm sure of that. But the one part of it that was
Put I was told that. I was like, I don't think that they were like intimidated by the threats. I don't know why they did it, but I don't think it was because of that. But
no,
when she said it, it was kind of like a way of like, you know what? It's kind of like instead of letting it get out of hand, just let them talk for a minute, like a little kid, you
yeah.
can't have a
All right,
battle over
what
it.
the fuck do you want? That's what you
Right.
say to a. What do you want? Just say it and then move on. But what I wanted to talk about, because this is kind of your area of expertise, is about the abortion issue, and they got to that in this debate, and Kamala was ready for it,
Yeah.
and I've said to people before, if there is anything that's most important in this upcoming election is overturning Roe v. Wade. That is the thing that's going to sink the Republicans. And I think Kamala was ready and excited for that to come up. I think Donald Trump was not. How do you think that went?
Do you remember like right that last one podcast we did, and I said that I want her to tell him how insulting and how disrespectful it is to say that women are carrying babies to term and murdering them or murdering them in the eighth and ninth month. And when she said that, I was like, oh my God, thank God she said that.
Well, I called
Another
I called her and I said, "Hey, listen, Old Soul's got some input." And
Another thing she said, which let me know that she gets it, is when she said these women have to get on a plane and sit next to strangers and go hundreds of miles away by themselves to get the help that she needs. I'm like, oh, she gets it, because that's like one of the reasons. Even when I'm not home, like my TT or my daughter, there's always someone at that airport to get that woman or that girl, because it's like they have traveled from home by themselves and like stressed out. Like I can't imagine like the mental mind space that they're in. And they're without their best friends or their mom or their husbands. They are by themselves. And it's just like, no, someone needs to be there, park that car and have your butt at baggage claim when that woman or girl gets here, because they
yeah,
need someone to like be there with them as soon as possible. And when she said the part about them being alone on the airport and the airplane, I'm like, she gets it. And the only way that she can get it on that level is for her to actually sit down and talk to them and hear their stories, because she knows that this is what they've had to go through. And for her to point that out, I was like, it just humanized her even more, because it's like when she's speaking for them, and she's carrying those stories with her when she talks about that issue. And I was so happy when she called him out. Everybody wanted this. They didn't want this. A
well,
child that's been raped or has incest, she doesn't want to be put in this situation. Like, I think like last year, a girl in the seventh grade started the seventh grade off with a baby. She didn't want that. And so for him to say, oh yeah, this is what everybody wanted, it's fine now, it's BS. And she was like one of the first people to just like call him out to his face, looking at him as she said it. I was just like, thank God someone is speaking for these women in a compassionate, articulate way.
Kamala
And
said
I'm so
some, Kamala said something and it reminded me of you. She about getting it too. She talked about a woman having a miscarriage and having to sit in the parking lot to get sick enough to actually get treated. That's a real thing that happens. You've told stories about it before, and I don't know that most people understand. It's just not women having promiscuous sex using abortion as a prophylactic of sorts. These people are in trouble both emotionally and physically, and because of these laws, these women's lives are at risk.
right. And they just say, you know what? If that's what your state wants to do, that's fine. It's a states' right issue. It doesn't matter. It's
Now,
not a states' rights issue. It's a woman's issue. It's a woman's health issue. It's a child's issue. And then the other side of that that they don't see is when they put these laws in place to punish the women and these girls, they don't speak out, which leaves these predators and these pedos free to just go around and have more victims, because these girls, they can't report it, because if you report it, guess what, now you get to go to jail or foster care, and your parents get to go to jail for aiding and abetting, like you some kind of felon or something.
right.
And these men are just free to just go around and just do it to the next person. So for someone who claims to be so pro-life, and I don't know when he got to be the most pro-life president ever, that's a bunch of crock, but for him to be so pro-life, he is not trying to do anything to protect these women and these girls at all whatsoever. And this insulting part about everybody wanted this, it's like, no, they didn't. Let's come up
No.
with some laws where, you know what? You can't have Viagra. You can't do this. You start putting some restrictions on their bodies and watch how quickly the coin flips. They're not going to tolerate that. So why should we?
When you said Republicans and Democrats want this to me sounds like something that evangelicals and the radical right told Donald Trump because they know he's stupid. That's the justification for doing this. So he thinks he did something big. Donald Trump exposed himself as a coward when David Muir was asking him about his personal opinion on a national abortion ban. Now, he said that he was against a national abortion ban, and then he kind of pawned it off on Congress, which is where it would come from. Then David Muir asked him, would you veto a national abortion ban if it came to your desk? He would not answer that. David Muir did the right thing. He asked him 3 times and he
Yeah.
refused to answer that. And the reason he refused to answer that is because if he said, yes, I would ban it, then he would piss off his base and his evangelicals and he would lose their votes. But if he said no, he would piss off the other side. Uh, so, so, um, so he was trying to ride the fence here and try to keep everybody happy. But this is a very polarizing issue. You can't you can't come to a compromise here. As I've said before to Trumpovux, they say, why can't you just understand what we think and compromise? No, you're wrong. I'm right. There is no middle ground. And that's the case with the abortion situation. And he didn't have the courage to stand up and say what he really believed.
You know what else he did that was very idiotic? He challenged women.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize it until one of the one of the women at the watch party, she was like, bet, hold my purse. He said, this is so stupid of him to say. He was like, go ahead, do it. She's not going to have the Congress to do that. She's not going to have the House and the Senate. So it doesn't matter if I'm going to veto it or not. She's not going to have the House or the Senate. It's not going to happen. She's not going to do it. And then one of the women, she's like, bet, hold my purse. We're going to give her that Congress that makes sure that it does make it to her desk. And then I was like, this would be good to put in an ad, just to let him know that he just challenged women to send her a Congress that is going to put that bill on her desk. And when he said that, he was trying to be a little smart, but I don't know where that came from. But he challenged women to send a Congress that would actually put that bill on her desk.
Right.
And I don't even think he realized that he did that. But it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, we got you. We'll get you that Senate. We'll get you that House. We'll make sure that bill gets on your desk.
Well, the
And
important thing, he doesn't realize anything. He thinks he's going to win. He thinks the Republicans are going to win the House, which they most certainly won't win the House. He
no.
thinks they're going to win the Senate, and chances are they won't win the Senate. Even if
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump got in, the Senate and the House are going to be working against him. He believes that this is going to be a clean sweep for Republicans. After watching that debate the other night, clearly that's not the case. That's just not the fucking case.
He is living in a dream world.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks he is going to have a House and a Senate that, like right now, he can just pick up the phone and call and pull the strings on his little puppets. If he thinks he is going to be able to do that again after the election, when he does absolutely nothing to help the down ballot races, he doesn't campaign for them unless they pay him. I saw that they can't even ride on a plane with him unless they pay for it. You're
Right.
both going to the same city. You both have the same goal to give you backup if you were to win the presidential election. And you can't ride on the plane for free and y'all going to the same place. It's like if I'm going to the grocery store and my neighbor wants to ride with me, I'm gonna charge him gas money. No, I'm going there anyway. Get in the car and let's go.
Yeah.
The selfishness of him to think that he is just going to, I guess, will this into existence. He does absolutely nothing to help these people. It's insane that he thinks they're going to pull a rabbit out of their behind. That's not going to happen, sir.
No, this is what narcissists do. They continually try to gaslight. I'm the best. I'm the smartest. I'm the strongest. We're going to win. They do think they can will this into existence. They think they can intimidate people to just give them what they want. And maybe when Donald Trump was a child, when he was in school and when he was in business, maybe he could do that because he had people that were catering to him. But he's in a bigger arena now. He's fucking around and finding out that he doesn't have that kind of power or control. He has less power and control than he did in 2020, far less than he had in 2016. And I don't know that he's realized it yet or he's just trying to push it in hopes that people buy into his bullshit. And after the debate, clearly people are not buying into his bullshit.
Yeah, that's something like when I hear you talk about your father, like, so
Yeah.
for my daughter's dad, I didn't get to see, like, I saw his narcissism in his prime. So I didn't get to see him taper off. And
Yeah.
you were actually able to see it from beginning to end. So
Yeah.
I wasn't able to witness it to the end. So sometimes that does throw me off because it's like, where is his charm? Where is his ability to, like it's missing that part of it. But I do like, I remember what you said about how your father just kind of like tapered off. So the narcissist he was at a certain age, he is not like that any longer. Like that's gone. Is it
No.
like it kind of makes me smile to know that these people really do kind of like wither away. But I never got to see the other
Well, no,
side of
no, no, they don't wither away. They crash, and it's a horrific crash
it.
for
Mm,
them and sometimes the people around them, if they're still around them. Donald Trump's trajectory is downward. And what I've ever seen with narcissists, there's no coming back from that. It just gets worse and worse until they're gone, sometimes literally till death. And Donald Trump, I don't know what his lifespan is going to be, but at that moment in time when he finally goes to meet his maker or his maker's enemy, whichever way he's going, uh, he's going to be alone. Nobody will be around him. He will have nothing to offer anybody anymore. He will have burnt every bridge. And that's how
yeah.
it always ends for these fucks. That's how it ended for my father. That's how it will end for your daughter's father. And this is how it's going to end for Donald Trump. And we're watching the descent right now, and it's
Mhm.
getting worse every day. And he's fighting like hell to grab hold of something, but it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. He's going to crash. He's going to kill his career, his reputation, and ultimately himself.
Yeah, it kind of feels like when I'm watching him flail around, it's like, like if you're in elementary school, you have those monkey bars. It's
Yeah,
like he's trying to grip the monkey bars, but the monkey bars is like has oil all over it. It's
yeah.
just impossible. So he's just like doing everything he can, but it's 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 for not. It's for not. It's not going to change anything. There's nothing he can do about it. He's already on this trajectory that
Right.
it's kind of, I don't want to say ordained, but you can see where he's going. We're just kind of like watching a train wreck, which I shouldn't smile when I say that.
I'm looking forward to it if anybody deserves it. And I will tell you, as a kid that grew up in the '60s that climbed my share of monkey bars, the
Yeah.
worst part. There's two bad parts of monkey bars. In Minnesota, it gets very cold.
Mm.
You know, if you stick your tongue to the monkey bars, it's going to go badly, but you can't help yourself. You do it anyway. You stick your tongue to the monkey bars. The other thing is when they're slippery and you fall, inevitably you fall with one bar landing between your legs. Now, I don't know what it's like for women, but for men, it's a revelatory moment in time. You don't go on monkey bars again after that.
Well,
And
I'm from Vegas.
Donald Trump's about ready to do that.
I'm from Vegas, so we don't have the same monkey bars as they do now, and a lot of our playgrounds have like tents over them because of the heat.
And they're
But ours
plastic and they've got rubber
didn't
stuff around.
have that.
We had
Ours,
fucking metal monkey bars and cement. That's what we had.
yes, we had metal, and you would grab them in the summertime, burn your little hands, go down the slide, burn your little legs. It was kind of like, you just squirming all over the place. And that's how he, like a little kid at a playground, and it's too hot outside. He just squirming all over the place. Oh, babe. Oh,
You know,
babe.
what's interesting. I've been reading and hearing these people who are on the Republican side responding to what happened in that debate. Lindsey
Mhm.
Graham said it was a disaster. I'm surprised to hear the truth out of that fucking clown. I've heard people say that it was a bad day for Donald Trump. I've heard people try to suggest that it was Donald Trump who won. I've heard them say that it was ABC's fault because they had the audacity. Well, Donald Trump himself said they should punish ABC because they had the audacity to fact check him. I don't know where the fuck he's going there. And then Ben Shapiro came out, that creepy little Republican dipshit that has a podcast and all that stuff. He said, this is what a lot of people are saying. Well, it doesn't really matter. It's just an inflection point. And in the TikTok I did, I said, "Great, great, Ben. When your balls drop, come back and talk to me like a grown up, as opposed to the way you normally talk." But this is what they do. They're going to try to play this off. For the life of me, I don't know how anybody can possibly say, "Well, it was close." It wasn't close. It was an absolute destruction of Donald Trump.
I think that Republicans need to get together and have a meeting figure out their talking points and roll with it. Because it can't be that he dominated and he won, but at the same time it was rigged and we need to I don't know, defund the moderators or whatever. It can't be that he did great and debates don't matter, but at the same time it was 3-on-1. It's just kind of like, well, which one is it? Because if he did such a wonderful job, then why would you want to punish the network?
Right.
It's so weird. And then I heard him say, this is the funniest thing to me. He keeps saying that if you win, you don't have to do another debate because you won and you can just bask in your win. But he won the first debate with Biden, according to polls and all that crap. So he went on stage the very next day and said, I want a second debate. I'm challenging him to a second debate. We could do debates from now until the election. He wanted to debate. And now he's like, well, I won, so I don't need to do another debate. It doesn't make sense to do a debate. And if I do a debate, it'll be on Fox News with Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, or Jesse Waters, that little prick. I cannot say his name without calling him a prick. It's just kind of like, why don't you just say, you know what, I had a bad night? Even Biden said, I had a bad night.
Right.
I take responsibility for that. But when I fall down, I get back up. He can't even take responsibility for a bad night that we all saw him have.
You know, it's funny. Kamala Harris came out and said, yeah, let's do two more. Let's do one in October. Let's do two in October. And Donald Trump basically, like you said, went on Fox. Yeah, I probably won't do it. I won't do it, even do it on Fox if Brett Baer is going to do it. So I don't. I said that before the debate. I said once he's done with this, he will not want to do another debate. But the funniest line I heard was after the debate on MSNBC. They had Tim Walz on, and Rachel Maddow asked Tim Walz, "So what do you think? Do you think Kamala should debate him again?" Tim Walz said, I think she should debate him every day.
Yeah. I like what he said. He was like an old man yelling at the clouds.
Yeah.
The way that he talks, I just love the way he talks. Because normally you say, oh, the old man yelling for kids to get off their lawn or whatever. He says an old man just yelling at the clouds. That's even worse because there's nobody there.
Well, and that's the thing about it is that there's supposed to be another debate on October 1st. JD Vance and Tim Walz. I personally don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Donald Trump will debate again, and I think they'll try to shut that one down because as much as JD Vance is a Ivy League educated guy, Tim Walz will tear him to shreds.
I think that JD Vance and Tim Walz will debate. And the reason that I think that is because right now they are backed in a corner and they're trying to do absolutely everything that they can. So even though JD Vance, when he talks, he gets himself into a lot of trouble. So what they would focus on is like reining him in and maybe thinking that if we can just get him to not say the weird stuff, that he can kind of revive the campaign if he can take out Tim Walz. So I do think they look at him as more articulate and more restrained than Trump. So they will put some hopes in him going up against Tim, but it'll be like a lot of coaching. One of the last things he said, I was going to tell you this, but I forgot. When he was saying that, he basically said, childcare, we can't do nothing about it. Ask your mom and them, see if they can help, right?
Right.
For me, that had potential for policy. And I don't know. I think that's just his inexperience. And if they do like teach him policy, maybe he could do some stuff. Because we have, for like your grandparents or someone that's disabled in your family.
That's not a policy, though.
No, what he said is not. But he could turn into a policy. You know what I mean? So we could subsidize. So if like you have a grandmother or grandparent or someone disabled in your family, you could take a couple of courses. And then when you go over to help them out, cook for them, clean up or whatever, you actually get paid through the state for doing that.
Right.
You can turn that into a policy for childcare. So instead of like a grandparent or whoever going to work at Walmart, they could really get paid to just stay at home with the children, do your CPR classes or whatever it is that you need to do. You got your Social Security, your retirement, and then your extra income could come from
But old
babysitting or
soul,
watching your
they
grandchildren.
old soul, they aren't gonna say that. They aren't gonna.
That's what I'm saying. But the thing with him is he has like a bunch of weird ideas in his head that he could actually turn into policy. And I don't know why he doesn't do that. I don't understand why he doesn't say, if you don't have people that could watch your children, we can give you a voucher for daycares. We can
Yeah,
help open up more daycares. Those are actual policies. But for whatever reason, the policy part doesn't click on into his mind. It's that sexist, misogynistic part that shows through. And it's just like, you could be sexist, but turn it into a policy. It kind of makes me feel like he's pretty slow in that area, but the
yeah,
campaign may be thinking, well, maybe we could teach him policy, or maybe we could do this or do that, and maybe he would be effective. Because as
yeah,
bad as he is, he's not as bad as Trump. He's
yeah.
just
But
weird.
yeah, he is just weird, and Tim Walz doesn't look nervous about the
Okay?
prospect of debating with him. The problem with JD Vance is that he may be more articulate, he may be more stable than Donald Trump. Frankly, my 4-year-old granddaughter is more articulate and more stable than Donald Trump. Um,
Of course, Judy is. She got more charisma too.
she
Way more Riz. Way more Riz.
way more Riz. I'm gonna start calling her Riz. Um,
That's
but but she got to call me Riz too. Um,
bruh.
bruh. Well, she quit that now. She's off on something else. But what JD Vance appears to be is socially awkward to me.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
Tim Walz is exactly the opposite. He's very socially adept. And Tim
Mhm.
Walz won't have a problem making him look stupid. And the
Yeah.
problem JD Vance has, maybe he's more articulate, maybe he's more stable, but the only thing he can speak about is Republican policy, and they have no policy. And the
Yeah.
reason that's why he comes up, well, maybe grandma can help, or we just have to deal with school shootings, because there is no policy for the Republican Party. As intelligent as he might be, he's got nothing to offer. So he's got to come up with bullshit. And that is a weak point with JD Vance. He's not a bullshitter. He's not good enough at that to do that.
That is such it's a point that you just made, because he's so uncomfortable in
Yeah.
his own skin. Because I don't think that JD Vance feels that he could authentically be himself. And
No.
that comes across in like a lot of things that he says. The the obsession that he has with women and the choices that they make, it is just astonishing to me that he needs to deal with some of that stuff that he hasn't dealt with yet. I think once he does deal with that, and or if he were to deal with that, be himself and get some experience, he could be a different person. I just don't think he's willing to do it. But that still doesn't excuse his lack of policy now. Like when he said that, my mind automatically went to vouchers, subsidizing grandparents and aunties and uncles who just need
Yeah.
part-time work or whatever, right? My mind went to policy. His mind didn't go there, which
No.
lets me know that naturally he's not a politician. He's not a problem solver. And he's not trying to be. He's just trying to be put in a position that he didn't earn, he's not qualified for, and that's why it's going so poorly for him. But he just wants to be in a position to where the people who are backing him, they have power and a way to grow their wealth. So I don't even think that this is something that he's even passionate about, to be honest with you.
JD
And it's not an
Vance,
excuse, because he has advisors and he has staffers. If he was to say, hey, what do you think about this? How do we turn this into a policy? He doesn't even have to think for himself. He just have to have qualified people around him. And then all he has to do is just go and stand on a stage and articulate that. So
but
it's
the
not even for the
problem
crack.
is he's been like this before. He's been a VP candidate. That's why they're
Mm,
going back in time and pulling stuff out of podcasts that's ridiculous, because he's
mm,
saying shit, and they pull it out and he can't answer to it. You know who JD Vance reminds me of? He reminds
mm.
me of Josh Hawley, because they're both think they're tough guys, but they're wimpy as hell. kind of the Barney Fife thing. You probably don't get that, but people who are
I
listening
do
that are
get
my
that.
age, Barney Fife, the guy that was Andy Griffith's deputy, he got one bullet because he didn't know how to deal with it. That's what these
Yeah.
guys are like. I'm the tough guy, but I'm running the fuck out of here. So JD
I think
Vance
that
has a
I think
problem.
Josh Hawley is different because Josh Hawley, he thinks he's a tough guy and he thinks he's portraying that. And I think that JD Vance, he knows he's not a tough guy and he is trying to give us what he thinks that we think a tough guy is. So
Yeah.
I do think that he is one of these, I guess pretenders is the less offensive word that I could say. He's a very, very pretending type of person.
Well, the other problem JD Vance has, he's like an NFL quarterback who's having a shitty season and he's getting pounded by Donald Trump. He's getting pressure from the Republicans. He's getting pressure from the campaign. He's getting pressure from the people. And when you put somebody under that kind of pressure, they can do nothing but fail. And JD Vance is not going to be a positive for this campaign. He hasn't as of yet. Every time he says something, he's become the whipping boy. He's become the guy that you grew up with, that you picked on all the time. You may have loved the guy, but you picked on him all the time. He just has that vibe. And he's going to always be that way as long as he's working under Donald Trump. So now when he steps on that stage, he's got, how do I take on Tim Walz? But he's also got to worry about, how do I keep Trump happy? How do I keep the Republicans happy? How do I keep the campaign happy? You can't perform under that kind of pressure.
I wish that, whole thing. I just wish he could be himself. But I wish that he knew that he could be himself because he can. He just doesn't know that. And I do think that a lot of any dignity, anything like that he had, has been completely stripped away from him.
Absolutely.
Even the one thing that he did have was his record as a serviceman. And I think people do still show respect for him, but they don't even respect that about him on his bio. But the fact that he is willing to cover Trump and what he did at Arlington, the things that he said about people in the military, his military past in general. So it's just kind of like, yeah, you lost that respect there too. What do you think about the debate when Kamala? I thought it was really authentic when she talked about how he treats our soldiers.
Absolutely. And I think that's important to get that out there. Donald Trump will say, I'm the best guy for the service people. That what she did is she stuck up to him plenty of times, but all the
Mhm.
talking points that needed to get out there in front of people, she did it. And she did it masterfully, one thing after the other. And the veterans thing, she got that out there. And the advantage she has in doing what she did, she made good use of the time she had, because this wasn't like being on Fox News or MSNBC. This is live. It was to more than 70 million people, and these were Democrats and Republicans. So now Republicans had to hear some real truths for
Yeah,
once.
yeah,
And
I'm pretty
she
sure.
did a wonderful job with that.
Yeah, they didn't know about I think the best way that I can describe it is the setup that Trump put in place for Biden and Kamala.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything from the Afghanistan thing to abortion, Kamala played him every time. He didn't win on anything. She won on everything. We're getting down toward the end. I know you got to get some rest because you're going to fucking Pennsylvania. Um,
I
but
did see that. One thing that I was wondering if JD Vance did his homework because it's something that, so I don't know if you know Vote Vets or not. Some of this stuff I only know through from my brother, but they're trying to get it that way on the basis that they're not playing Fox News on the
yeah,
basis because it is propaganda. And they've been trying that for a while, but with the Arlington happening, that's pretty good ammo to use
yeah,
to try to get that pushed through. But one thing that I learned and my brother was telling me about the dignified transport, if you know what that is. But when you have like
yeah,
servicemen and women who've been killed in action or just killed overseas and they're brought back home,
right.
typically like their family and the president is there to I don't want to say greet them, but they're just there to show their respects when they come back on American soil, right?
Right, right.
So when Trump was in office, he went to two of the dignified transfers. And the second one, I'm trying not to get emotional because this is so freaking disrespectful. But he was reckless with that mission that he sent them on. And the Marine's father was there. And he pretty much let Trump have it. After that, Trump didn't even have enough decency and respect to go to any more dignified transfers.
No.
The only thing that I can say about Mike Pence is he stepped up and he went in Trump's place.
Right.
And so when I found that out, anytime I come across any like vets or any like canvassing people who are saying, Trump is pro veteran and all this other kind of stuff, and I tell them that is like something that pretty much touches everybody. And I was just kind of thinking about JD Vance and saying, how was he not affected by that? If I'm hearing about it and I'm affected, that he would be that callous and that disrespectful, and that his ego, because I'm pretty sure, I know Biden went to one, I want to say in February 2nd, I want to say, and these families are not happy that you made a decision that got their loved one or their child killed.
Right.
But I've never known a president not to go and face these families. And I think it's important that they do that so that they do always have that in the back of their mind the next time that they're making a decision. And Trump, I think part of the reason that he doesn't care about that is because he doesn't have that in the back of his mind, because he wasn't a leader that was able to face these families. It's insane. And I don't know if JD Vance knows that. I would assume that he does. And how do you support somebody like that?
Well, I think we know how JD Vance feels about veterans and service. Um, in spite of the fact that he spent 4 years in the service, he is willing to say and do anything to benefit himself, even if it means going against his fellow service people. We know this because of how he's treated uh, Tim Walz. There's nothing in Tim Walz's history that suggests he did um, anything but everything above board. But he's willing to sacrifice that and say the things he says about Tim Walz, in spite of the fact he knows better.
Yeah.
Now we're getting to the end here, and I want to wrap this up on an interesting note, because I'm really intrigued as to what you think about this. Everything about this campaign has been about timing. The
Yeah.
timing of when Biden left office, the timing of when he endorsed Kamala Harris, the timing of when she picked Tim Walz and who she picked Tim Walz, why she picked Tim Walz, the debate, and then immediately after the debate, the thing that everybody's been waiting for, my wife has been waiting for it, the endorsement from Taylor Swift. What are your thoughts about that and the potential importance of that?
One thing I have to say that I respect about Taylor Swift is she has never once told any of her supporters or fans who to vote for. She's always said, register to vote, make sure your voice is heard. In this last message that she posted, do your research and vote. This is how you vote. Vote early, right? Like, she doesn't tell them, this is who I'm voting for. But you need to do your research and vote.
Well, wait a minute. She did say that, though. In that note she put on Instagram to 283 million people, she said, I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
This is who I'm voting for, but do your research and then vote accordingly. So
Right.
she is not telling them, I want all of y'all to vote for Kamala and Tim. She's saying, this is who I'm voting for, but do your research and vote.
But she's Taylor Swift. Does she have to tell them to vote for Kamala Harris? I'm voting for Kamala Harris. They wear all her clothes, have the same hairstyles, buy all her records. Of course they're going to vote for Kamala Harris.
I do think that she does have some people, and I mean, look at all of her followers. Yeah. There's Republicans in there. There's people that's not going to like that. Yeah. So it's not, you know what I mean? It's not going against anyone. It's just telling you, you have your right to vote, exercise it, right? I think that is, for me, I think that's the best part about the endorsement, but it also shows how strategic she is, as bad as the right talks down to her, and they only do it because she's a woman, to make it seem like she shouldn't be making decisions, she shouldn't be talking. For her to be that strategic, like, okay, I'm going to kick him when he's down. By the way, I'm a childless cat or a childless cat woman.
A little petty too. I like that.
It was so strategic the way she did it. Her timing could not have been better. And I know that I was hearing people say, oh, she should have waited for October surprise, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so because of the way these states are making it difficult for minorities and young people to vote now. They want them to show birth certificates and all this other kind of stuff. I tell you right now, the wild child, we just ordered hers. But it's just kind of like, they want to make it as difficult as possible. So she is not going to wait until the last minute. She's timing it to where she can sting it to Trump the most.
Right.
And in addition to that, still to give them enough time to figure out what the laws in their states are so that they can get registered and so that they can vote. It was like perfect timing.
Well,
It
the
was
time
perfect.
it's not like she hasn't done it before too, because when she endorsed Joe Biden, it was
Yeah.
right after Kamala debated Mike Pence. Right after that debate, she supported Joe Biden, and I think there might have been some thought too that if I do it right after the debate, if she wins the debate, I put the cherry on top. If she
Yeah.
loses the debate, she takes the steam away from Donald Trump. I really believe that was part of it. And I don't know if you heard this or saw this. There was a video now in the spin area after the debate. Usually they have surrogates out there, but Donald Trump's standing around waiting for somebody to talk to. And a reporter comes up to him shortly after the debate and says, did you hear, Mr. Former President? Did you hear that Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris? And he goes, no. And then he bolted off. That stung him. That did sting him. He was worried about Taylor Swift, and he's not happy about that. And one thing that maybe people don't realize, in that Instagram post, she had a link where you could go register to vote. You know how
Mm-hmm.
many people registered to vote off that link?
I didn't see the numbers.
More than 300,000 people registered to vote off that link.
You know
That
what?
says something.
That's what his butt get. For the simple fact is him, his little buddies, they go around and they bash Taylor Swift. Jesse Waters accused her of being transgender. Laura Ingraham did the equivalent of shut up and dribble, except for it was shut up and sing. We don't want to hear this crap at your concerts unless you're somebody who's rooting for Trump. All of the stuff that they have said about her, how crazy she is, how trashy she needs to stay in her place. When Trump thought for a second that she endorsed him, he was so happy, which lets you know it's not about the fact that she makes her politics known. It's the fact that she just didn't like his raggedy behind. It, to me, it is just, it was just like a gut punch to let
Yeah.
him know. Like, and I do think that Trump felt comfortable that maybe she wouldn't come out and endorse Kamala, because I don't know if you knew this or not, but there was like a threat at one of her concerts,
Right.
um, like a bomb threat or something like that. So he really did think that maybe his MAGA minions had pushed her into silence. And he was really thrown off when he realized that that didn't happen. And she pointed out the fact, yeah, your little AI stunt that you tried, yeah, that didn't work either. Yeah,
Right.
your little homeboy over there talking about childless cat women's, yeah, well, check this out. So I do think it was kind of like a couple of blows to him. She endorsed it, kicked him when he was down, threw the
Yeah.
AI stuff in his face, threw JD Vance's stuff in his face. It was kind of like an overwhelming night for him. I don't even know if there was ketchup on the walls. I think that they had to have sedated him. On
Well, they can try to go after Taylor Swift all they want. The fact of the matter is, Taylor Swift is the most successful and most powerful entertainer in the business, and she is a legitimate billionaire. If
I
all the
mean,
Republicans said we're not buying your records anymore, so the
so
fuck what?
not only that, but just tell me, how do you bully a billionaire? How do
A
you
real
do that?
one, a real one.
How do you bully a, I don't even know if that's possible to bully a billionaire. I don't, that don't even sound strange. And another thing about like all of these people with their tax cuts and they like Trump's policies and all that stuff, these tax implementations that Kamala is talking about putting in, Taylor Swift does not complain about that
No.
because she knows that her tax money is going to schools, roads, bridges, social
And
programs.
how much
She has,
money do you need?
yeah, she has more than enough. So if you take her tax dollars and you're putting them into these programs, that's going to benefit people who support her, people who helped her get into the position that she's in, education. You know what I mean? Like, how is that a bad thing? So I do think that even though she isn't like the oldest billionaire, but I do think that some of these billionaires can take a page out of her book and understand that they're not taxing you to be mean. just, just want you to pay your fair share. You know what I mean? You really do pollute the air with your private jets. You
Right,
drive on these roads.
right.
Well, maybe not your kids go to these public schools, but maybe you did. Maybe your neighbor's kids go to these public schools. You don't want any of that funded. You just want to make your billions of dollars off the backs of everybody else, hoard all your money to yourself, not pay any taxes and be left alone. It don't work like that.
Taylor Swift could quit singing today, quit
Mm-hmm.
recording, quit touring, marry Travis Kelsey, have 15 kids, never have a money problem. Her 15 kids wouldn't have a money problem, nor would her grandchildren. So she's got to be a secure woman at this point. She's set herself up in a big way for the rest of her life. Of course, she wants to continue to record and sing and all that stuff, but you can't threaten somebody like that.
No,
You
and
can't.
unlike Trump, her money makes money.
Yeah,
I like how
exactly.
Trump pointed out that he's just a trust fund baby who took all his dad's money and filed bankruptcy 6 times.
Yeah, yeah,
That was,
absolutely.
I have to tell you something that the Wild Child said, and it was so funny. So I don't know if you saw when they went to the September 11th memorial. I was like not happy about it because his supporters were there being disrespectful. But
Yeah,
outside of that, Trump went out of his way to shake Kamala's hand. So I
yeah.
was like, is this a get back from when she like went into his space last night and shook his hand? And, and I was talking to her on the phone, and she's like, oh, absolutely not. I was like, then what do you think it is? She was like, he better start being nice because in a few months she's gonna be the only one that can give him a partner and keep his butt out of prison.
Right, right. Well, the other thing too is people were commenting while they were shooting video of him at this 9/11 ceremony. He was
Yeah.
the only one smiling.
I mean, he is not human. I don't know. You okay? So you are older, so you'll understand it. You remember that show V?
Yeah,
I really do think he has got to be a lizard in a skin suit. There is no way that this man is like human. For him to be smiling at the most inappropriate times. The only thing he was missing was the stupid thumbs up.
yeah. And I will say there somebody interviewed a Republican who voted for Trump in 2016 and in 2020, but this time around, they say they're going to vote for Kamala Harris, and they say,
Mm-hmm.
"Why are you going to vote for Kamala Harris?" And this Republican said, "Because she acts like a human." And that's what this is. The bottom line is about humanity. Donald Trump has no humanity. He doesn't behave like a human. He doesn't care about anybody but himself. And I think people are finally seeing that.
Yeah, I that it's just so not just inappropriate, but just disrespectful. If you've ever been to the memorial, like when they start reading the names, to me, that's overwhelming. How anybody could stand there with a smile on their face. Even at the debate, he kept having that weird smirk on his face at times when she was saying things that you would think would be offensive to him. Those were the
Yeah.
times he chose to smile. And he knows he's guilty because as she was calling him out, that, that dummy was nodding his head in agreement.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, old soul, you're up late now. You're this time you're an hour ahead of me. I know you got to get some rest, so I'm going to let you get some rest. Thank you for stopping in today and doing this, even though you're on the road.
Not a problem. Anytime. When are you going to read your emails? I
Hopefully
like,
pretty quick. I got somebody else done tomorrow. I may do an extra one to do the emails. I
I
know
was
you sent
anxious
me.
I was anxious to hear what people said about this debate. I know they are going to dominate your emails. I can't wait to hear what your listeners have to say about it.
Oh yeah, they're talking. They're talking, and I enjoy the email. So please, if you want to send more emails, rationalboomer@gmail.com. You get some rest. Go off to Pennsylvania. Just keep us abreast of your travel log. I don't know where you're going after that, but um, let us
I
know
got
what's
you.
happening.
I'm like Mary Poppins. I go where I'm needed.
Mary Poppins. That's an interesting way to identify. You're a lot like Mary Poppins. Um, all right. Well, for those of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.